Hello and welcome to Mark Talks Mags number 20 something or other. I'm not sure what it is. We're going to go for something a bit different again. We've tried looking, we've tried sniffing glue, we've tried Gandalf's garden, and this time, and I'm not sure how well it'll work, so I'm not sure exactly what the content is, we're going to try something that if you're my age, well, if you're between the ages of, let's say, 45 and 65, it's something, if you're a music fan, it's something you'll remember from your youth because it was really important. And it's Record Songbook. There we go. And basically what it was the hits of the day, and actually a lot of the time it wasn't hits of the day, it was songs that never even made the charts, and it was the words of the songs. Now, as far as I know, it was certainly running in the very early 60s, as I've got a few copies from then, and I think it ran up to probably something like the mid 80s or something like that. It may well have changed its name by then, but certainly throughout the 60s and the 70s it was known as Record Songbook. And this one, looking at the cover, although it doesn't actually say the date on the front, looking at the cover and the artists involved, looks like we're looking at late-ish 60s, 67, 68, that sort of date. We may find out in a minute. And the cover stars are The Who. So one especially for my good friend Graham, who is a big Who fan, particularly from the 60s, I guess. But it also has lyrics by Lulu, Donovan, the Tremolos, Dionne Warwick, John Rolls, Val Doonican, Aretha Franklin, the Byrds, Matt Monro, etc. So we'll turn the first page, and it's got the contents, which literally is just the songs featured in here, but there will be other things apart from songs. And I'm just seeing if we can see a date. Yep, here we go. 1st of the 7th, 68. So the 1st of July, 68. And the cover stars, The Who, feature on a little bit of news here. The Who are long overdue for cover honours. We decided to feature them a couple of months ago when they returned in triumph from a barnstorming and highly successful 6 weeks American tour, earning the dollars for Britain. But their long-promised new single was delayed indefinitely. And then we got blah, 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 blah. The latest album was The Who Sell Out. And then it gives a little synopsis of their history, which we all know anyway. Their previous hit singles, I Can See for Miles, so we can see what sort of era we're talking about. The songs featured on this first couple of pages are by Matt Monro, who was a English crooner, who his biggest claim to fame, I suppose, was he got a Bond theme, but definitely a parent's favourite. It's not one for the kids. A New Generation and John Rolls, who were probably minor hits. We turn the page and we've got songs by Val Doonican, another parent's favourite, Irish fellow who would sit in a rocking chair, and who actually, I have to say, was quite important in my childhood, because one of my first LPs, although it didn't belong to me, it belonged to the house, if you like. But one of the first records I started playing was The World of Val Doonican. So things like, he did a fabulous version of Elusive Butterfly, but like it or not, it was a brilliant version. But he also had songs like Paddy McGinty's Goat and the like, so novelty songs, etc. So he was definitely a mum's favourite, Val Doonican. We've also got Donovan, the Hurdy-Gurdy Man, which of course was a huge hit. Tim Rose, the Crickets, Oh Boy, which I'm guessing had probably, in that case, in 1968, had a reissue. Then our next page is Around and About. Brings you news and gossip from the showbiz scene. Oh dear. Wherever you go from this month on, you could run into Jimmy Savile and find yourself one of Jimmy's stars appearing in his own Radio 1 Sunday afternoon show, Savile's Travels. Of course, this was just a year after Radio 1 started, so prior to that, all we'd seen the likes of Savile on was Top of the Pops. And sad though it is to say today, he was a massive star. Although he was old enough to be the dad of a lot of the listeners, he was a huge star. Very sad. Anyway, it's just a year into Radio 1. It says, for this 60-minute show is for all the family, and Jimmy wants to get away from the swinging London showbiz beat. So he's taken a tape recorder with him on his travels up and down the country, and knowing our Jim, he could literally turn up anywhere in his flamboyant white Rolls Royce. So watch out! Britain's liveliest DJ is on the road. Yeah, too bloody right. Watch out, because heaven knows what he got up to on those travels. But there we go. Most heard but not seen vocal group around. That's The Breakaways. But they hit the limelight when they backed Cliff Richard in the Eurovision Song Contest. Now suddenly these three girls are on the way up, and their debut disc is Santo Domingo on MCA. Well, I don't think it was a hit. I'm guessing they were probably a session girl backing band, a little bit like the Ladybirds were, who were constantly would turn up on your TV in the 60s and early 70s, but they never really had any hit records. They just were well known for backing people. Anyway, it goes on to say, all three, brackets, ex-Vernon's girls, close brackets, who were a hit band, are married. Jean, on the right of our picture, has songwriter Mike Hawker for her husband. Margot, on the left, is married to drummer Tony Newman. And blonde Vicky is singer Joe Brown's wife. Well, we know who Joe Brown is, of course, one of the great British early rock and rollers. Tony Newman, there's an interesting one. His wife, what was her name? Margot, was married to a guy that has a great part in Bowie's history. Tony Newman was the bass player on Diamond Dogs, which is an interesting album when we look at who played on it, because of course legend has it, although it's meant to be official, but I'm not sure how true it is, Bowie played all the guitars on it, because he'd by now jettisoned Mick Ronson after Pin-Ups, and so Bowie played all the guitars. Not sure how true that is, but yeah, so his rhythm section on that album was Ainsley Dunbar, great 60s drummer, and Tony Newman, and so he also played on David Live, I think. So three well-connected ladies, the Breakaways. What else we got there? Oh, of course we touch on television as well in this magazine. Thames Television begins transmission on Tuesday, July the 30th. And here are a few of the treats in store for us from that date onwards. A new series of The Avengers. How good was The Avengers? A legendary 60s show. Starring Patrick Macnee and his latest partner, Linda Thorson. Linda Thorson took over from Diana Rigg, and what an act to follow. You had Diana Rigg, who was probably, well, not probably, without any shadow of a doubt, the sexiest woman on TV at the time. And so when she left the show, they had to fill her boots. And they were quite some boots, because they were probably thigh-length leather ones. But Linda Thorson was a beautiful girl, and she did the job pretty bloody well, I'll tell you. Linda Thorson was a lovely girl. What else? Kenneth Horne stars in a comedy review, Horn Aplenty, with Sheila Steeple. Sheila Steeple was a staple, a Steeple staple of comedy TV of the late 60s and early 70s. And some of his other friends from radio's Round the Horn. What else? Just received from Eddie Foster, overseas sales manager of Page One Records, this photo of the Trogs and Larry Page after being presented with a gold disc, silver disc and a special award from South Africa for sales of Love Is All Around, which was a great song and everybody loved it until Wet 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 murdered the fuck out of it. But just forget Wet, Wet, Wet and go back and listen to the Troggs version. It's great. Turn the page, and the songs on this page are... Oh, that's interesting. One of my favourite artists from the early 70s, early to mid, if we were looking purely at teen idols. Let's forget all the credible stuff. On the teen idol side of things, one of my favourite artists is David Essex. David Essex was every girl's dream, and every boy dreamt of looking like him. If I was that way inclined, even I would. He was such a handsome man. But we tend to think of David Essex, his first hit being Rock On, which was 72, I think. Prior to that, we all know that he came to fame. I think it was in the London production of Jesus Christ Superstar. No, it wasn't. It was the London production of Godspell. But here we have him in 1968. Words and music by Randy Newman, and recorded on Uni by David Essex, is a song called Love Story. So he'd been treading the boards before he hit it big. So there we go. Also, other songs on this page are by Lulu, Bobby V, The Pyramids, which is a great single, one I've got. The Pyramids were Eddie Grant's band. Obviously, Eddie Grant became a big British reggae star in the late 70s, early 80s, and he was obviously one of the equals. But the Pyramids were also Eddie Grant's band. And All Change on the Bakerloo line was their, I think they had 2 singles, and that was their biggest hit. Not a massive hit, but great song. Words and Music by Edmund Grant, otherwise known as Eddie. And the other song in here is Marty Wilde, who was, by then, was a dying force as far as chart pop went. And his single was called Abergavenny. What a strange thing to do, write a song and sing a song about a small Welsh town, but there we go. Around the Studios is talking about films, and we've got Swan Lake starring a film production of the ballet Swan Lake starring Margot Fonteyn and Rudolph Nureyev. United Artists Whiskey Renegade starring Burt Reynolds, Angie Dickinson and Clint Walker. Marlon Brando has left the cast of Warner's The Arrangement. Elizabeth Taylor and Frank Sinatra have agreed to play the 2 lovers in 20th Century Fox's The Only Game in Town. Apparently, it's a zippy romantic comedy. Robert Mitchum has been signed for Who Rides with Cain. And latest castings for Paramount's Oh What a Lovely War, a bit of a classic, are Dirk Bogarde and Susanna York. There's 2 iconic names. Over the page, we got 2 pages of news without any lyrics. Showfare by Wyn Carter. One of America's hottest new groups, the Union Gap, featuring Gary Puckett, achieved a gold record with their first single, Woman Woman, which hit the top stateside last year. Not so surprising, therefore, that they should capture British chart fans with their second single, Young Girl, which, of course, in the intervening years, since 1968, 52 bloody years ago, songs such as Young Girl have caused a bit of controversy, because just how young was the girl he's talking about. You know, it's a song, for Christ's sake. Don't get upset about things like that. A young girl can be 23 as far as I'm concerned, but I think some of the doubters think that the young girl in question and in similar songs is probably 13 or 14, but I doubt it. This Is Soul on Atlantic is a must for collectors. It's a compilation. Featured are all the great artists on the Atlantic and Stax labels. Wilson Pickett and Percy Sledge, Carla Thomas, Arthur Conley, Sam and Dave, Ben E. King, etc. Great stuff. Highly recommended. Otis Redding was the best one-man campaign soul music ever had. That's what it says on the sleeve notes of his great new LP, The Dock of the Bay. And another one I've got. And after listening to these 11 fantastic numbers, I'll certainly go along with that. A single from The Cream otherwise known as Cream. They were always the Cream, but, well, they weren't always the Cream. They did actually lop the off, but I think everybody thinks of them as Cream. A new single from The Cream is a very rare event, since they usually concentrate on LPs. They were, of course, one of the first album bands. However, which was a coming thing in 1968, by 69-70, albums were the thing. Prior to that, all they were was you buy the single, you might buy the album, but it's unlikely. However, Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker obviously have an eye on the hit parade, since they have produced the most commercial record ever heard from this group. Anyone for Tennis on Polydor with a flip, pressed rat and warthog will please Ginger's drumming fans. Well, Anyone for Tennis wasn't a bloody hit, was it? So I think the two big hits, single-wise for Cream, or The Cream, were I Feel Free and Badge. Badge being one of my favourite singles of the 60s, I think. Great stuff. Georgie Fame is an uncomplicated sort of guy. He has no burning ambitions to play Hamlet, and so long as the occasional hit single makes with the lolly, he enjoys life and remains true to his R&B image, which brings him personal satisfaction, if not quite so much money. Georgie Fame made one of my real favourite 60s singles, which was Sitting in the Park. It was the British version of what had already been an American hit, which was the way things went in those days. You'd often find that you'd have two versions of a song in the charts at the same time. So a song would be a hit in America, and record companies, management companies, agencies were getting together trying to somebody in this country to cover the version of that. But occasionally you'd end up with both versions in the charts. Anyway, Sitting in the Park by Georgie Fame, just sublime. There's a little rundown of Spin These Singles. A few names in there: The Seekers, Aretha Franklin, The Marmalade, Don Partridge, Simon Dupree and the Big Sound, The Beach Boys, The Association, Eric Burdon and the Animals, which of course by then it wasn't just the Animals, it was Eric Burdon and the Animals, which was an American band. Eric Burdon left the Animals, Alan Price, Chaz Chandler et al., and went to America and formed a new band, which was Eric Burdon and the Animals, later the New Animals. But they made some great songs. Don't think they're going to be like The House, The Rising Sun, but some of the songs they did were brilliant. The one mentioned here is Monterey, but San Franciscan Nights, great songs, really good songs, but very different to what you might expect to hear. Solomon King, Elvis Presley. A worthy follow-up smash for Elvis Presley is US Mail on RCA. Did that make the charts? A thumping great hit from the Rolling Stones, it's Jumpin' Jack Flash. And it's the old Stones as we know them and love them, it says. Then we're back on the lyrics, and we've got Dionne Warwick, Do You Know the Way to San Jose? Big hit, of course. Aretha Franklin, Think, another big hit. Bobby V, Hey Girl, no. Georgie Fame, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, that's a Jimmy Webb song, which underlines what I was just saying about British artists copying or covering American hits, which Georgie Fame did with Sitting in the Park, and he's done again here with By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which I had no idea he'd covered. Of course, the American hit was Glenn Campbell. Jimmy Webb, Glenn Campbell worked together constantly. Anything by Rick Burden and the Animals, Tremolos, The Fortunes, a little small piece on Andy Williams, my mum's favourite, as I constantly tell you. It's taken us a long time to find such a great picture of Andy Williams as this one, so we print it now in tribute, and thanks to Andy for such a tremendous Royal Albert Hall show with Henry Mancini last month. He of course became a bigger star in the UK than he was in America. Massive star. And I'm surprised they took that long to find a great picture of him, because he was a good looking boy. Hence the reason my old mum fancied him like hell. Next page, discs that are different. So what have they got here? Oh yes. Oh yes. Another one of the great 60s songs. This super photo of blonde songstress Jacky, and I'm sure you know what I'm going to say now, with friend gives us an excuse to feature her on this page with her so different hit single, White Horses. Jacky has been singing for quite a few years and had made lots of records as member of a vocal backing group. But this is her first solo hit record, and as she says, it was the record most unlikely to make it. Unlikely or not, it was snapped up as the theme tune for a children's TV series, and wham, that was it. For Dublin-born Jacky, it's the luck of the Irish. Well, I guess it was lucky. It was a French TV programme, of course. So an Irish girl ends up singing the theme tune to a French TV programme. And yeah, it defied belief that it was a hit because it was different. But then history's scattered with that, isn't it? Songs that should never have been hits, but just struck a chord because they were so different. Another one that springs to mind, obviously, in the late 70s was Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. What the hell happened there? How was that a hit? We can look back at it retrospectively and say it deserved it, but at the time, in the heat of the punk rock movement, Wuthering Heights should have sank like a stone, but it didn't. So thank God for people liking different records, and White Horses by Jacky is one of the best. Who else is mentioned here? Bing Crosby, Joe Loss and his orchestra. Joe Loss was the in the post-war years was the British Glenn Miller. My dad, who was a jazz musician all his life, hated Joe Loss because to him it was the commercial side of something that was very dear to him, the post-war dance band thing. So he couldn't stand Joe Loss because I guess in the early days of dance swing bands, you never actually saw the band leader. But of course Joe Loss came up through the TV era, and his great big beaming cheesy smile, every time he appeared on TV, my dad would be effing and blinding whatever if Joe Loss was on. But there we go. I'm sure he's a nice man. Who else? The new Miles Davis album very definitely falls into the category known as specialist, and it is in inverted commas, which is why it rates inclusion on this page. It's easy to say that Davis is a fantastic trumpet player, not so easy to describe his kind of music, except to say that it's ultra contemporary, weird, if you like, and certainly way out, etc., etc. Photo Call. This is just a couple of pictures of people appearing in a current TV show. Keith Buckley as Tom Crabb, sorry, that's my phone, and Michael Latimer as Philip Hardacre in the series of stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, currently being televised on BBC One. Don't remember it, I was far too young, but suffice to say it's almost certainly been wiped, as the BBC were wont to do. But it looks like it could have been quite interesting. These very popular horror and suspense stories were first shown on BBC Two and are now enjoying a rerun on Channel 1. They centre around 3 undergraduates who become involved in thrilling and spine-chilling adventures written by the creator of Sherlock Holmes and set in the years just prior to the turn of the last century. Sounds interesting, but as I say, it's undoubtedly lost to all, thanks to the BBC's rather dodgy system of just wiping tapes so they can use them again. The 2 songs on this page are When We Were Young by Solomon King, a real great, and Finders Keepers by Saltwater Taffy, obviously not so great. But it's interesting to go through these songs and see how many of them were hits, because I think so far we've had 3 hits and numerous non-hits. Coming to the last couple of pages, we've got The World of Oz with The Muffin Man. The World of Oz had 1 hit and it wasn't that one. There's a hit, a great song, one of the great country songs, O.C. Smith with The Son of Hickory Hollis Tramp. It's interesting that this was a seller. In other words, that people would buy magazines just to look at the lyrics. But of course, there was you couldn't Google a song and see what are the lyrics of this song or whatever. So you had no option. And you couldn't Google a song and listen to it. So you had to wait for it to come on the radio, listen to it to see if you liked it, go out and buy it, and that's my phone again, sorry. Go out and buy it, and then work the lyrics out. Or you bought Record Songbook. So interesting. The Ohio Express, Yummy, 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 minor hit. The Birds, You Ain't Going Nowhere, minor hit. Otis Redding, The Happy Song, an absolute banger, which I recently posted on Facebook, an absolute banger. And Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, I Promised to Wait My Love, which wasn't their biggest hit, but a good song all the same. And what are we going to find on the back? It's the handsome Engelbert Humperdinck, who for a long while rivaled Tom Jones as our greatest export to Vegas. And yet, I can only really remember, he was a huge star, but I can only remember The Last Waltz and Please Release Me. Do you remember any others? No songs mentioned in here. Anyway, I'll leave you with Engelbert. I don't know if Record Songbooks worked or not. I've got loads of others, so we can do it again later on if you like. Leave a note on the YouTube page. Let me know what you think, because it's all down to you what I do. I'm just doing this for a laugh. It's just like being in a pub speaking to mates. So if you like it, leave a note. If you don't like it, I'll forget Record Songbook. So until the next time, see you guys. Bye.
Talks Max.